Precept upon precept. What does it mean? Oh, let me take this dictionary out here. On this dictionary that I have here, precept, where is it? Precept. Precept, there's several meanings of precept. The first meaning here is a commandment, a direction given as a rule of action or conduct. The second is an injunction as to moral conduct, a maxim. The third is a procedural directive or rule as for the performance of some technical operation. Number 4, in law. A, it is a writ or a warrant, a written election. And then they use a reference here in Latin. The word precept is synonymous with directive, order, guide, instruction, or prescription. So what is it that we should take from precept? Well, maybe we should look at, maybe we should look at the words that precept was translated from. Now, if we go and we look at Isaiah 28 verse 10, I'm going to show you here in the original writings, or I should say the original pictographs of the region where the writings came from. Down here is what was translated as precept, and it's tasa wa, and that means direct wa. Tasa is a map, means direct, directions. Wa is a tent peg. It's supposed to mean secure, but there's additional meaning to wa. And how we can find additional meaning to wa is to look at a name that we are all familiar with. And this name is Yahweh. And Yahweh, the YHWH that everyone's familiar with, the pictographs are here as follows. And the Yah is the arm with the hand. The Wa is a spirit dancer or spirit person or spirit. The Wa is the tent peg. And then again, the Ha is the spirit or the spirit dancer. But what is the Wa other than a tent peg? Other than a tent peg, what does that Wa look like to you when it's in picture form? See, that's what's important about looking back at the ancient pictures. There's hidden meaning in there. There is Amen. Amen means hidden. There is hidden meaning in the pictographs. And it's hidden because it was covered over by letters and other symbols that look nothing like the pictures, so those meanings were discarded, we should say. But if we look at the pictures, what does it look like? Doesn't it look like a person without a head? Well, recently I did a video on body language associated with the ancient pictographs, and I had thought about it that there was probably body language associated with all these pictographs. Seeing as the language developed and messages were conveyed in a forum, a public forum, and the different types of people in the society could gain message and understanding through the body language. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that they had spirit dancers at that point in time, for sure. They were a tribal community, and the language even shows that they did. Now, if you look at what you would know as Elohim, right here, the pictographs directly underneath, this could be translated as God led spirit dancer to make water. And that's part of the beginning story of rain dance, of a spirit dance, a communication between the spirit world and the natural world. Now, what we can infer from this is, well, the language is lost. It's wrong. The translations are mistranslated. But back to the concept of precept. Well, what is precept? What do we get from precept? Precept is a communication, a legitimate form of communication is what it was in the dictionary I just read to you. It is a writ or a warrant, which is a written form of communication. These are written forms of communication, whether we look at the letters or the pictographs. But it's not just written form of communication. The communication is considered legitimate from a legitimate source. Well, is this a legitimate source that I'm trying to discuss here? The pictographs and the spirit dance and the nonverbal communications and non-written communications that occurred? Well, we can see people in society nowadays, they got their hands flailing about and making all kinds of gestures. There's no set sign language or anything, but their hands are moving, and you may or may not understand what it is that they're saying, but somebody else might understand what they're saying. And what is that? If you think about it, what is that? Is that trying to make communications to people that just understand the nonverbal communications? Or is that an attempt to establish a nonverbal communication? Whatever the case may be nowadays, I hold firmly that there was a nonverbal communication associated with the pictographs, and it's pretty easy to re-engineer what those were. And by re-engineering what those nonverbal communications were, helps to tell the story of what the writings were really about. For example, again, in Yahweh, right at the bottom there, pictures, Yahweh. Looks like two people, two spirit dancers, then one without a head. Why would that Wah in the middle not have a head? Well, it could be that the head, as in the nonverbal communication, would be like this. That the person was in subjection. That's what it means. It could be that the person is dead and their head is just hanging down because they're lifeless and they're dead. It could show that. But again, it means subjection, that the person was subjected, was a subject. And I believe that is what the pictographs infer, as Yahweh was a deity in the Canaanite pantheon. I almost said Canaanite. There was no name Canaanite. That is a newer made-up word. If you look at the Hebrew writing and you look at it, you'll see there's no T at the end. There's no symbol that sounds like T at the end. There never was a symbol that sounded like T at the end. It was something that was made up. And we know by looking at the writings, the Hebrew dictionary I'm talking about at this point in time. Now, you could go and get yourself a copy online of a program that's known as eSword. And eSword is a Bible program, and it has in it many different varieties of the Bible. And the particular one that I look at most often is called the King James Plus version. And in the King James Plus version, there is links to the Hebrew words that the English words were translated from. And anybody can do this. It doesn't take any special talent to click on a link and have the Hebrew diction meanings pop up. even though from what I'm telling you, there's additional meaning than just the diction meaning. And that is through the pictographs there's meaning. And I think that's very important because if you look at the evolution in the Bible, Moses did not start the writings from the time that he was born forward. So where did Moses get this knowledge from that he went back to what was considered the beginning? Where did he get that knowledge from? Well, he could have totally fabricated it. I believe he may have fabricated it, but it was based on education of the language, where in the Hebrew language, names denote the character of the entity, so that he could then go back and write a story around the character of that entity. Or there could have been complete writings that he just copied and continued on. I personally think that it was a combination of the two, that there was writings and there also was the names. So he had the characters that he could establish his own writings with also. But I personally believe that from the very beginning, that those writings are original writings that Moses just copied. And the reason I say that is because there's additional story or alternate story that comes through with the pictographs. Excuse me a moment. Now what I have here, that's starting from the very beginning of the scriptures that you know as Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. And the way that people typically pronounce this in the beginning is Bereshit. That's how they pronounce it. But you could break it down into the syllables and the separate pictures, and it makes different sounds. But the sounds, I don't believe, are very important. But the pictures in and of themselves are important. This is 6 pictures there, starting with the Ba. And we got Ba, Ra, Sha, Ya, Ta. And those each have their own meaning. Now that can easily be translated in meaning to read, into person, God, nutrition, to make complete. Which really is the concept or the precept of the writings. But as we continue on, more information is given. Into person, God. And we go on to the next line. God led spirit dancer to make water. That is what I already showed you. What is written as Elohim or Elohim, or in your English version would be written the newer name, God. And then if we continue on, we got God completes. So I'll do this again. Into person, God, nutrition to make complete. Into person, God. That's God being put into the person. God led spirit dancer to make water. That's the basis of the spirit dance, known as the rain dance. And that's the explanation. God led spirit dancer to make water. And God completes, stating that it's not just the dancer, it's God completing the spirit dance, known as the rain dance. And then we have here, spirit consumes water to make water, and God completes. Spirit, God, person, way. That's the end. That's the explanation of what it is. This is the spirit, God, person, way. And it's to talk about the spirit dance, and it shows how the language actually works in association with the ancient scriptures compared to the newer way of looking at the ancient scriptures by taking modern translations and then reapplying them to the archaic or the ancient. And that's why the translations aren't true. They aren't correct. And that's why in Isaiah 28, where it speaks about precept upon precept, and why it speaks about precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. It's hinting to people on how to get the knowledge that is in the writings. Not the superficial knowledge, not the English version of the knowledge, not all the, what should I say, not all the human put into it, should I say human? I don't know. All the fallibility, all the, I don't know, the adultery, the perversions. There's the proper word to add in there. All the perversions that have been added in throughout the Bible with the translations. Now, if you get yourself a copy of eSword and you start looking at the underlying Hebrew words and how they evolved into the English words, and it's really simple. You can see a group of words and click on the link that shows you the underlying Hebrew word, and you should easily say to yourself, hey, wait a minute, there's all kinds of words added in here. There's all kinds of words to make the story that you know today to be the way that it is. But is it true? Is it truth coming forward there? And I think that's the most important thing that anybody should ask when dealing with a true and honest Bible study is, are you even starting out with the truth? The answer to that is no. Well, the answer to that is yes. Well, how can I say that? You say, now listen, this guy's being contradictory is what's probably going through your mind. No, I'm not. You look up the word truth. Look it up. I'm not going to open up my dictionary right now. I already know the types of meanings of truth. Truth can mean one thing, and then it can be another. Truth can be something that's fact, material fact, undisputable material fact. But there's another truth. There's a second truth. And that truth is the same thing as what diction means today. And that means something that has been done on a regular fashion and following a concept or a precept. And that's what truth is. Truth is something that is known by, let's say, a particular group and what their belief system is. That's a truth also. Is it true in the notion that we commonly think of the word truth? No, it's not the same. It's not the same. But it is a meaning of the word truth. And that in and of itself is an important thing to understand, because you can be speaking to somebody, for example, and they're talking about your Bible and they're saying that it's the truth. And there's nothing, to dispute it. Well, yes, there is things to dispute it, because that truth is not the truth that you are obviously thinking of when they say truth. And they know that. And they know that. They're educated enough to open up a dictionary and read and see that the truth that they're speaking of is different than the truth that you believe it is, and they know it because what they're doing is using deception. And as the writings tell you and explain to you, one of the three patriarchs by the name of Jacob, the meaning of his name is deceptive or deception. So that's what's really going on. You have been deceived. Now what are you going to do?